Minimalists.
Do you remember life before smartphones? How about before cell phones in general? Some of you may be too young to remember, but there was a time when... Wait a second. What am I saying? I'm one of those young people. This isn't going to be a video pining for the good old days before smartphones. Quite the opposite, actually. Why? Because as intrusive and addictive as they can be, the smartphone is still an amazing tool that enhances our lives and has connected us more than ever before. But despite that, why does it seem to harm us more than help us? Do you know how much time you spend on average on your phone per day?
Oh, on screen time, jeepers. See, this isn't going to be fair. This is going to reveal, hey, do what I say do, not what I do.
According to Screen Time, I consistently spend about 4.5 hours a day.
On the average day, I probably spend between 2 and 3 hours, if I believe what shows up on my Apple meter. Probably a little less on the weekdays, probably a little bit more on the weekends.
So I do have an iPhone, but I do have the Screen Time app turned off, in part because they can use that data, which may be a little bit suspicious, but more generally, there's not much interesting I would learn from it, because my iPhone is boring. There's no social media on it. There's no games on it. I mean, I assume the main thing it would report is podcast.
It's not good. It's about half my day I am holding this thing, which is why I have a pop socket on there. Otherwise, my pinky would probably fall off. How much of that is actually productive? Well, since I do digital marketing, I have to say some of it is for work. Maybe 20% of the amount of time that I spend on my phone is productive.
I think if I look at the apps that I'm using the most of it's email, which is generally productive for me, sort of work email. A little bit of it's social media. I mainly use social media for sort of work purposes to talk about the book and related topics. So I would probably say, I don't know, definitely during the week, probably 80% of time on the phone is productive.
Right now is 1 hour and 41 minutes. That's just one device. I don't have all of my... I don't know if there's a way with screen time to tie... I don't think there is, and I wish there was. I would like to have screen time on my Mac, screen time on my phone, and screen time on my iPad all tied together, right? Because I can guarantee you if I were to pick up my iPad mini, reading and reference would be through the roof.
I mean, think about the phone almost as a prosthesis, like an appendage, right?
Yeah, I heard someone at Google call it the 79th organ.
Wow, God help me.
Yeah.
Okay, so, the problem is unlike our other organs, it's not biologically determined. It's not built upon an organic relationship with our other organs or our body. Mm-hmm. It's a prosthesis built by someone else for their own aims that remain largely mysterious to us. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps Steve Jobs was onto something when he remarked, "The computer is like a bicycle for the mind." He recognized how fully we could realize our potential if we learned to use it more appropriately and responsibly. And yet, it seems we continue to misuse and abuse that same technology. So, where did we go wrong?
I think you can quantify productivity in a couple of different categories. Of course, working, that's very productive. But also, I think filling yourself with joy and having fun is very productive, and it's very important. But there's a certain threshold that I think we meet by using these social apps, where we filled ourselves up, we're using it responsibly, we're posting nice things, and it makes us feel good when people are engaging with it. And the other part is us just procrastinating and pushing back everything else that we should be doing and just hoping that something gives us that feeling.
I think what's most interesting about that question is sort of what counts as productive, right? Because I think the big challenge of some of these devices is we start with a certain task or certain thing being productive, but then it often expands to fill more time than we originally intended. So, for example, if I'm waiting in line for a flight, I often have nothing else really that I can do. So I say, I'll get on my phone, I'll look for some information just to sort of pass the time and not be bored. But then sometimes when I get on that flight, or there are other things that I could be doing, sometimes that original use sort of sucks up to fill more time.
Well, it's important to recognize that it didn't used to be this way. I mean, we had at a certain point in our cultural history, we had iPhones and social media existed, and yet people didn't look at their phones all the time. There's something fundamental about a smartphone or something fundamental about social media that means you need to look at your phone all the time. So why do we do that now? Well, I wrote an op-ed about this last year in the New York Times, where I went back and talked about what happened with the iPhone. Where did we shift from Steve Jobs' original vision, which is that this is an awesome phone and it's an awesome iPad and it's on one device, so you don't have to carry two devices, and it's just very convenient and it'll solve problems for you. How do we go from that to let's look at this all the time, to the point where it's actually diminishing the quality of our lives? How did we get there? Social media. Not in particular, not just what the services were, but the way that they specifically re-engineered the experience in the time frame of roughly 2010 to 2012, specifically to try to induce people to look at their phone more.
It's not about the phone. It's about what's in the phone. It's about what you're doing with the phone. It's about what you're hoping to achieve with the phone. But even more importantly, it's also about what you're trying to ignore, what you're trying to escape, what you're trying to forget about.
So, like many issues in life, there's no single one-size-fits-all solution here. And that's certainly not a bad thing, because that means you can tailor-fit a solution that still fits your needs, yet it's very intentional. For those with incredible focus and self-control, the solution may be as simple as scheduling time throughout the day to check your phone. Also, leaving their phone in one place at night, not checking until the morning. For those of us with slightly less willpower, the solution may also involve removing unnecessary apps from their phones or graying out their phone screens. And for those of us with highly addictive personalities, the solution may be switching to a phone that's, well, just a phone. Or perhaps, if possible, no phone at all, at least for a time. Now, what we presented here is certainly not an exhaustive list. You should definitely check out Cal Newport's 30-Day Digital Declutter, as well as a few other resources I've listed in the description below. If you have a suggestion of a method that works well for you, or a resource we haven't mentioned, please leave it in the comments below. All this considered, ask yourself, does your smartphone get in the way, or does it enrich your life? That's it for today. Thanks for watching Unpacking Minimalism. In this series, we want to dig deeper into conversations from the Minimalist podcast and discover how these concepts can be directly applied in our daily lives. If you have any ideas for what we should unpack next, feel free to comment below. And remember, love people, use things. Thanks for watching.
The Minimalists.